Ever since guys like Miller, Schlitz, and Pabst set up breweries in the mid-19th century, Milwaukee has been regarded as America's best-known beer town. But 400 miles away, the city of St. Louis, Missouri is home to the largest brewery in America, Anheuser-Busch.
Adolphus Busch was one of the original idea men in beer marketing.
Adolphus Busch really reminds me of Donald Trump of today.
Inside the Anheuser-Busch brewery, they crank out more than 1,300 bottles per minute, 1,000 kegs per hour. More than 12% of all the beer in the world emanates from this 1.6 million square foot campus, including its flagship beer, Budweiser. Here, the recipe for Budweiser is carefully mixed, boiled, and fermented in a state-of-the-art environment that monitors temperatures and yeast growth. Anheuser-Busch produces the #1 selling beer in America. The incredible success of Anheuser-Busch wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for the ambitions of one man. On March 7, 1861, in the bustling frontier town of St. Louis, Missouri, a 21-year-old brewery supply salesman, originally from Mainz, Germany, married the 16-year-old daughter of a brewery owner named Eberhard Anheuser.
Eberhard Anheuser had gotten hold of a brewery through a debt collection and didn't really know what to do with it.
But his new son-in-law, Adolphus Busch, had a few ideas.
He was clearly a visionary, a lot of ambition, and a lot of drive. So I would imagine he was quite a dynamic person.
By the 1870s, Busch was in control of the newly christened Anheuser-Busch Brewery. He wrote, "It is my aim to win the American people over to our side, to make them all lovers of beer." Not as easy as it might sound. In those days, the only beer people drank at home was the stuff they made themselves or bought locally.
Back in the 1800s, beer was a very local beverage. If you wanted to take beer home, you went to the local tavern with a bucket or what we called a growler and had the tavern owner fill it up for you.
There was only one problem.
The shelf life of the beer was very short. It did spoil. Beer was brewed for almost immediate consumption in those days. So you didn't have big distribution networks.
If Busch was going to get his beer to the people, he'd have to make it last longer. Bottles offered a great solution, since the beer inside could be pasteurized to prevent spoiling. But at the time, they were still made by hand and very expensive. But Busch was a visionary. In 1873, ignoring the costs and concentrating on the eventual benefits, he became the first brewer to bottle beer for shipping. When the automatic glass-blowing machine was invented in 1895, other brewers began bottling. But Anheuser-Busch was already out in front and ahead of the industry-changing trend.
Bottling changed the way America drinks.
For the first time, a person could actually buy beer in a bottle, take it home, take it on a picnic, enjoy it at a family celebration without having to be at the tavern.
With beer liberated from the tavern, Busch saw no reason to keep it local. And with the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, he saw a new, fast way to get it to the rest of the country.
And the iron horse roared across the plain, and towns grew beside its rails.
In 1887, Anheuser-Busch formed a subsidiary company, the Manufacturers Railway Company. Its purpose, to produce railway cars to ship beer cold across the United States.
The refrigerated rail cars were refrigerated by ice, and it would keep the beer cold. Now, obviously that ice would melt, so we had to construct a distribution system where we had ice houses along the railroad routes where the cars could be replenished and fresh ice could be put into the rail cars to keep the beer cold.
Now that his lager could travel nationwide, he wanted to create a signature beer with one taste that everyone in the nation could enjoy.
The idea was to create a light lager, very crisp and drinkable, that had really mass appeal to all kinds of different tastes.
Busch had just the beer. It was a pale, light lager called Pilsner. His business partner, Karl Conrad, had sampled it while traveling through the Austro-Hungarian Empire in a city called Budweis. In 1876, Busch introduced his own version of the Pilsner in the United States. He called it Budweiser.
Here we go.
Here comes the king. Here comes the king. Here comes the big number one.
Here comes the king.
Budweiser beer, the king is second to none.
Budweiser beer.
To promote the new national beer, Busch, ever the showman, traveled all over the country in a luxurious railroad car named the Adolphus, passing out premiums like a pocket knife corkscrew emblazoned with the company's name. The campaign was a success.
People saw the beer sparkling in the sunlight, and they just went nuts. The beer they had drunk their entire lives, they now wanted nothing to do with. All they wanted was the new golden beer.
By the early 1900s, Budweiser was selling at a rate of 1 million barrels annually, one for every 75 Americans. Busch's dream of turning Americans into beer lovers was coming true, and brewers everywhere were reaping the rewards.
Instead of being a small business, these were really industries now. They were making a lot of money, and they had a reach that encompassed the entire continent.